Let's bring in former Navy SEAL Cameron Hamilton and the Foreign Desk Editor-in-Chief Lisa Daftari. Thank you to both of you. I want to put this up because this is critical on a world scale. We're talking about countries that have lost confidence in Joe Biden since 2023. You look at the United Kingdom, down 14%, Spain down 13%, Sweden down 13%, Poland down 13%. I mean, it's a big drop, Lisa, and it's very concerning what the rest of the world thinks about America.
Right. These are allies. Now, we're not talking about the adversaries.
Right.
You know, what's crazy is that the mainstream media is now all of a sudden talking about what the world and our adversaries think about Biden in the last week or so since the debate. But our adversaries have been watching Biden for the last 3.5 years. And they understand the weakness, not just in his physical weakness, but in the posturing, in the policies, in the lack of deterrence. And now we're trying to play catch up and say, well, here we are at NATO. Will the world now all of a sudden understand that we mean business? Our president is strong enough. He's fit enough. I mean, his own party is saying that he's not fit enough. Yeah. But here he is standing before the world stage and saying, please believe in us. We mean business and we're the United States.
And Cameron Hamilton, you wonder why other countries are losing faith, losing, their respect and their confidence in President Biden. And you look at this is the Daily Wire talking about Biden skipping meetings. It says Biden skipped early evening meeting with world leaders about Ukraine war so he could go to bed. German officials were aware of Biden's fatigue at night and decided to accommodate the president by holding a confidential meeting about the war in Ukraine in the early evening so that he could attend. However, Biden never showed up. Secretary of State Antony Blinken attended instead and announced that Biden had to go to bed. I mean, if you're in the military, right, if you're anybody and you see the allies losing confidence, it's a big deal.
It's a major deal, Trace. I think what we're seeing right now is, unfortunately, a man who is not competent and he's not capable of doing the job. Look, the American presidency is not something to be desired by any individual. There's so much stress that's upon it. And so we need a president with all his faculties and all his ability to deal with the stressors of today's era. Right now, we are facing international war on a level that we have not seen in quite some time. So I think, again, his behavior and his rhetoric and his tone has been projecting weakness over and over. There was a very different rhetoric and tone under President Trump, I will say. Traveling overseas with the State Department, we saw a very clear difference. They may not have liked him, but they absolutely respected American might and American influence and power. We don't see that now, so those numbers are not surprising.
How important is the state of the NATO address, the news conference this Thursday?
You know, it's going to be all eyes on Biden. His words, his actions, every handshake, every entry, every exit in and out of a room. He's going to say much more than just his words with his body language. And again, he's the leader of the free world. So how can we walk away thinking that the world is a safer place, it's a better place, it's a stronger place when he is at the helm? I mean, it's going to be a really big deal. It's all eyes on Biden.
Peter Doocy was asking this national security question at the White House briefing today. Cameron Hamilton, watch this.
Well, he also said he's sharpest before 8 p.m. So, say that the Pentagon at some point picks up an incoming nuke. It's 11 p.m. Who do you call? The First Lady?
He has a team that lets him know of any news that is pertinent and important to the American people. He has someone that is decided, obviously, with his National Security Council on who gets to tell him that news.
Yeah, I mean, it's the old 3 a.m. call, Cameron. Right now it's 11 p.m. and soon it's going to be backed up to whatever. It's one of those things. Another thing that is distressing for a lot of people who are concerned about national security.
Look, the office of the president projects strength and confidence throughout the world, not only for American interests, but also to defend freedom and democracy around the world. So we need to have an American president who projects that strength. Aside from all the rhetoric, we need an American president who is capable and who that we believe the greatest stressors of conflict and international instability can be counted upon to have a resolute and strong mind. Unfortunately, that's not what we're seeing out of the White House. So the fact that Peter asked that question is, again, because many Americans are simply concerned. And the Democratic Party, their consultants all across the country have admitted the same thing.
Yeah, they really have. Cameron Hamilton, Lisa Daftari, thank you both.
I'm Steve Doocy.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.